When it comes to horror, remakes are no stranger. Neither is being disappointed by a remake of a beloved franchise. So, with a remake, it's always a gamble. But in rare occasions, you will stumble across a remake that doesn't quite live up to the heights of the original, but improves on what made the original a little dull, a little slow. At points almost uneventful, the remake may sacrifice some of the tension or suspense but delivers with intensity, character development, and aggression. But you also run the risk of the age-old question of, why?
All right. Welcome back to another Uneducated Opinion. I am your host, Jordan. Today, I'm going to be doing a review for Strangers Part 1. And you may say to yourself, it's not a remake, but a reimagining. I say I couldn't give a good gosh damn. Anyway, for those who refuse to wait, I got you. The Strangers Part 1 gets a solid 3 out of 5. It's familiar but inventive. It reconstructs a solid foundation and goes back to the roots and expands on previous ideas without necessarily disrespecting the original material. What more could you ask for? The acting is, I would say it's solid, but it can get a bit over the top, or certain scenes come across as like low rent. And it is shot for shot adjacent to the 2008 original with minor tweaks to give the franchise new life and ability to expand in a different direction. But if you don't want to re-experience the original, you might want to leave this for the new generation. But with a planned trilogy with all 3 parts already shot, and if you're a fan, I would say go in with an open mind. Now, it's not necessarily all axe chopped doors and brutally tormented taunting, but it's also not a snooze fest, with the scariest thing about it being the runtime. The runtime's only an hour and 31 minutes, I think, which is damn near perfect in my opinion, and it feels well utilized.
Perfect!
So from the moment the movie starts, the chemistry between Maya and Ryan it's very evident. And it was also refreshing to see the power dynamic between the two, because it isn't necessarily leaning one way or the other. And it's also kind of uncommon when the girlfriend, wife, or significant other isn't necessarily emasculating, or when the male counterpart isn't a selfish, unaware buffoon. So it's nice to see that it was 2 characters that genuinely cared about each other, and from there, their story grows. Although, to be fair, I'll say that the rest of the cast is a bit dodgy when it comes to coming across as genuine or campy. Sometimes the actors, you can't tell if they're like trying to be campy or if they're actually, trying to earn their 15 minutes of fame. But overall, I don't really have any complaints that stand out. And now when they deliver the breadcrumbs, throughout the film that hints at sequels with cameos, pamphlets, rather aggressive church boys, and what I was picking up is possible hints at the identities of the Man in the Mask, Dollface, and Pinup Girl. Although at times the foreshadowing and, the breadcrumbs come across as a little ham-fisted. And another thing that I really enjoyed was the actors who play the strangers. They make a terrific effort. They have the same intensity and display even similar apathy to the original Strangers, in my opinion. Although, I'll say when Dollface screams and tweaks out, goes all crazy, it comes across as more comical than intimidating. And for me, it almost ruins the tone of the movie. Luckily, it shifts from that scene rather quickly. It was just, I don't know, man, it was just kind of jarring. And then the originals, they did set the standard, while the sequel, Prey at Night, it seemed like the strangers were ready for retirement in that movie. But The Strangers Part 1, it brings back that hunger. They seem like they're actually driven this time, and they're very aggressive, and I love it. Now, the acting of Maya and Ryan only complement the terror of the strangers, with Maya and Ryan being able to express, especially Maya, being able to express such levels of terror and being able to display, her own intensity when it comes to displaying the fear, which eventually turns into anguish. It also brings some new inventive shots that help create the terror felt by the characters. There's one scene, it was in the trailer, but like Maya runs to the door and almost instantly an axe comes through. I thought that shot was actually really awesome. And then the moment that Maya and Ryan shared at the end, it had me feeling very empathetic, and it didn't come across as completely corny because their journey the entire time, it seemed genuine. It didn't necessarily seem forced or I don't know the proper word for it. Well, yeah, contrived. But yeah, it wasn't completely corny. It was actually pretty touching. corny. It was actually pretty touching. But I will say that this end scene does drag on for a skosh too long. Like I said, that 131 mark is damn near perfect. If they were to just shave off like a few minutes, I think it'd be even better. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this movie is the soundtrack. The soundtrack is tremendous, and it helps, drive home the tone of the movie. Although, at some points, it's a little too on the nose, or borderline trying too hard at certain points, or even almost relying on the music instead of it being part of the atmosphere like the original. When that needle would drop and that music starts playing in the original, it'd make your skin crawl, and then you just feel completely uncomfortable. It was like how Quentin Tarantino, how he does with music, to where it's like it could be a happy song, but it's in a tense situation, so it makes it even more creepy. So other downsides some viewers might find unappealing is this movie is chock full of cliches. Stuck in the backwood area after the car breaks. You have the obvious mislead with the town possibly being involved with how they act to the strangers. Not the strangers, but the two people that aren't from there. Because it's a cast of assertive territorial rednecks and, the cliches. But overall, it's not too bad. And then the acting, like I said before, it can be a little shoddy, but when it matters, it comes through. Like at the end of the movie when it's just the strangers and then Maya and Ryan. The acting is very solid, and there's not really a moment that takes you out of that. The tension, the suspense, like I've been saying, that intensity, that aggression, it's all there. And then at one point, Maya, the way she's able to display how hopeless she is, it's kind of heartbreaking. But anyway, it is very predictable. Even as a reimagining of the original, it follows all the same beats, making differences in certain areas to make room for the sequels. But you're still getting what you got before. It's a little different. Instead of cheddar cheese, you're getting white American. But if you're a part of the new generation and you haven't seen the original, this is your chance to dip your toes in and see if it's for you. After all, the original came out 20 years ago. And granted, the sequel, Pray at Night, wasn't as long ago. But in my opinion, that movie only had a few saving graces, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Alright, so my final thoughts. If reliving the experience of the original, only less suspenseful, and there's less tension, yet more aggression and intensity, if that doesn't sound like your cup of tea, I would suggest sitting this out until the sequel comes out. Because even if you're to wait till part 2 and you haven't seen the new part 1, you're not really missing out on anything, because it doesn't stray too far from the original. The relationship between the two main characters and the cause of them being in the house is slightly different, but everything else is similar enough. But if it does sound like your cup of tea, I would suggest starting a trial with Starz, canceling it as soon as you sign up, and then just check it out. Because I would give it a 3 out of 5 for the attempt at a refresh and being able to expand to a trilogy. Whether for better or worse, I'm here for the ride. They played it safe with Strangers Part 1. I hope with Part 2 and Part 3 they kind of kick it up a notch and take some risks. I'm here for it. And to my viewers, I appreciate you guys. To my subscribers, I love you guys. And as always, remember,
stay spooky.